where do people come from? That's, I think, the first thing that people think of is, what's their ethnic culture, their racial culture, what language do they speak? But it's so much more than that. Your culture is also your neighborhood, what neighborhood you live in the city. You need to look at the sexual orientation. We have staff, again, and families from all different sexual orientations. That's another culture to look at. We have different socioeconomic statuses within the building, and there's different assumptions that come along with that culture.
As a teacher, you want to open up your classroom to the rich experiences that children are having at home and in their communities. So it's not inviting parents in as a guest, it's inviting parents in as part of the family, or family members in as part of the family, or community members in as part of the family. Also, it's so critical that our teachers represent the breadth of backgrounds and experiences that our children have. So it's not just the families coming in and bringing their cultures with them, but that we embrace the cultures that our teachers bring into the classrooms with them, and that they have an opportunity to share what's important to them in their home life and in their communities and from their backgrounds. Children are just open to learning about the world around them, and as rich an experience as we can provide for them, and understanding that is so important to their development.
Finally, it's time to break the fast. Kareem snacks on sweet date. Then he takes a big gulp of milk.
Diversity means different things to different people. So does culture. Classrooms that celebrate the differences among families and embrace the learning opportunities that result are showing their respect for the diversity in their program.
And I think that's the basis for a positive learning community. And when children can respect one another, when they can see this model through the adults in their lives, including teachers and parents and administrators, volunteers, young and old, all, when they see representation of all people in their lives in positive manners, I believe they become accepting in this way, that they know that they can ask questions. It's really interesting because for teachers or educators or other folks in society who think children don't see differences, they see differences all the time. And so we need to embrace that. We need to invite them to bring those questions into our classrooms and in our communities and say, yes, we are different. And if we're talking about it openly, then it's not a taboo, it's not a bad thing, it's actually a very good thing. Because if we were all the same, life might not be as interesting.
There are many ways a program can partner with families to help ensure that children's home life and their home cultures are represented. Doing so can be deeply meaningful and beneficial to children and their families.
I think for me, it's coming from a perspective of being a second-generation Indian immigrant. My parents moved here in the 70s, and we grew up in Denver, Colorado, where we were the one immigrant family in the neighborhood. And so everything that we did from a family celebration perspective was really behind closed doors because no one else really understood it. And I think the typical immigrant doesn't think to share these type of experiences outside of their home, thinking that no one's interested. But what happens, I feel, is that as a kid grows up in that environment, they almost become embarrassed about it, saying, okay, yeah, we'll celebrate Christmas and Halloween and Easter, and we know all of those things, but everyone on the outside doesn't need to know about what happens on the inside of our home. And I just feel like that kind of prevents people from experiencing the unity among the community that you live in. And I've had the chance to collaborate with both of our teachers when it comes to celebrating Diwali, which is the Hindu festival of lights, typically falls in the fall time frame. But in both situations, it was a very, this is something that we celebrate at home. Is it something do you think the kids would enjoy partaking in? And in both situations, I kind of ran a couple of books by the teachers and some craft ideas and a couple of songs, and we collaborated together to figure out what would be a good time frame as well as content to share with the children, to give them a taste of what Diwali is all about and why it's special to our family, and why we'd like to share it with our friends at school, which was really special. So that ability to kind of take our culture at home and kind of make it special for her, enough for her to share with her peers, I think is really powerful. And being in a community of learners where that's accepted and that open door policy is there is even more special for me.
It's very important to us that our children are aware of and understand the different diverse perspectives and the different ways that people are sort of, maybe we're programmed to have opinions or biases towards certain cultures and identities, and so just whatever exposure they can have to that early on and just being able to incorporate that and understand not just that there are differences, but how people react to differences and why it's important for us just to be aware of that, whether it be skin color or gender or ethnicity or sexual orientation or whatever that is. We want our kids to be, I guess, sensitive to that and also aware of it and want it to sort of be ingrained in what they do. So I think that's critical to us as parents of what needs to happen at school.
Sometimes cultural diversity can create challenges for families. Early childhood programs can support families by being sensitive to ways in which parents become isolated or excluded from their children's education due to cultural differences, including language barriers.
I think first of all comes fear. Fear of not knowing. Not so much the language, because they also have to adjust to a culture, to different things, to a different way of doing things. It's not about a level of education. To learn a new language is not about how much education, secular education you already had. Because you could be a doctor in another country, but if you don't speak the language, you're nobody. That's the downside of the language barrier. So it's fear, frustration, low self-esteem.
So I encourage my students to keep up with their Spanish at home, and to let their parents support them in that way, and then also to let them know they can teach something to their parents. If you have a book you're supposed to read to your family, and quite a few of my kids will be like, oh, but my parents can't read in English. It's like, that's okay. You can read that book to them in English, converse about it in Spanish, and then the student's using so many more parts of their brain, and then the parent has that connection to talk about the book with their student. They can value their home language just as much as English is valued as a whole in society, and to find that balance of supporting the home language and bringing in the second language of English.
Being active in the program's local community is a comprehensive way teachers can partner with families. While teachers gain a deeper understanding of the diverse backgrounds their children have, shared experiences help to grow stronger bonds with families.
So teachers have a responsibility to know something about the community or neighborhood surrounding the program they're involved in. Who are the people in the shops around them? Is there a farmer's market? Who's at the farmer's market? So sometimes if you have done that kind of work of almost mapping out your community, seeing who's there, that can bring in another level of connection with diversity in terms of relationships that you could then connect the families with.
When a teacher is hired to work in a community, the teacher must learn about the community. And learning about the community is not just saying, well, I went on an interview and I got hired and I'm really excited because I have a job. It's getting involved in the community, visiting the community center, going to the libraries, going to the stores, walking around in the community, meeting people, talking to people, so that the teacher can understand the community that he or she is serving. The teacher must make that effort, because when you make that effort, you're giving a very clear message. I respect you. I am interested in you, and I want to be here.
It's not learning what one adult believes is the right model for a lifestyle. It's what our society has to embrace as being best, and making sure there's a place for all children in it, whatever their backgrounds, whatever their family structure, and whatever the community life they're coming from.